Hi everyone, welcome to the August reveal of our County Line Crafts box. Let's go ahead and get started. When you receive your box and open it, you will have a picture of this month's project on the lid so that you will have an example of something to go by as you are doing your craft. As you can see, we have 3 houses that we're going to be making with a sunflower theme and some plaid. I'm going to show you how to make a plaid pattern with painter's tape. We've got our instructions. We have 5 different paint colors. We have yellow, green, brown, black, and white. We've got our paint sponges, our wipes, glue, our paper plate, painter's tape, sandpaper, and then all of our wooden cutouts. And there is a ton of them for this month. So I'm gonna take everything out of the box. Before you get started, you wanna make sure that you cover up your work area, your work surface. You could use the box that your kit ships in. I'm going to put some newspaper down on the table. All right, and as we go through this tutorial, I'm gonna follow the step-by-step directions just like you would at home. So, step number 1 says to take a baby wipe out, wrap it around your fingers, dip it in the white paint, and wipe it onto the house bases. Repeat until they are covered well. Flip over and paint the other side as well. So we're gonna get our 3 houses out. We've got 1 large house and 2 small houses. Our white paint, and we're gonna need 1 of our wipes. All right, so just take your wipe, kind of fold it over, and wrap it around your finger like that so you can hold on to it good. Dip it in your paint, and then you're gonna wipe it on with the grain of your wood. And keep in mind, white is a lighter color, so you'll probably end up doing 2 coats of the white paint. And you want to keep your coats thin, not super thick. If they're thick, they'll take a long time to dry and they'll just kind of look clumpy. You want to make sure you've got thin, even coats on your houses. All right, now that I have one coat on all 3 pieces, I'm gonna go back to my first one and put a second coat on it. And then you'll repeat that second coat on the other 2. All right, now all of our pieces have 2 coats on them. You can go back to your first house, flip it over, and we're gonna put a coat on the back of it. And I'm just going to do 1 coat on the back because odds are you're not gonna see the back of these as they're sitting on the shelf. those are done. We're gonna set them over to the side to dry. And I'm gonna use the clean part of this wipe to wipe off some of that extra paint on my fingers. Put the lid back on your white paint. We will be using it again in just a little bit. Step 2 is take out another baby wipe, wrap it around your fingers, dip it in the black paint, and wipe it onto the rooftop pieces and bases. All right, you've got lots of rectangles in your kit. These are gonna be our rooftop pieces and our bases. All of these. For our bases, you're gonna stack 2 of the same ones together. So take 1 of each size, and those will be the bottom pieces, and you do not need to paint them. So you can set them over to the side. And we're gonna wipe our black paint on all of these. And just like with our white paint on our houses, you want to make sure that you don't put it on too thick and you get good even coverage. I think I'm going to add a second coat to the base pieces. I want them to be just a little darker. I'm gonna leave my roof pieces with just one coat, but I am gonna flip them over and put another thin coat on the opposite side. right, those are done. I'm gonna wipe some of that extra paint off with my fingers. All right, and then put the lid back on your black paint. We will be using it again in just a little bit. All right, so it says you have 6 base pieces. Find the ones that are the same size, and we're going to glue 2 on top of each other. So 3. To open your glue, you're going to put the cap on and twist it. There we go. And you're just going to dab a little bit around and then set them right on top of each other. And give it a firm press. And then you can set those over to the side as you finish. There we go. And then I'm going to take those roof pieces and set them off to the side out of our way. And we are ready to start our buffalo plaid. You're going to need your painter's tape. I'm going to get my picture and set it over here next to me so I can look at my example to make sure I do them the correct way. I'm going to start with one of the small houses. You're going to need several pieces of tape about the width of the house. And it says, take whatever house you're doing first and lay down a piece of tape against the edge of the base. Skip a section, the width of the tape, and lay down another piece. Go every other like this until your area that you want the buffalo plaid on is covered. So for this first one, the pattern starts right here at the roof line. And then I'll go up one more. So I've got it like this. And take the white wedge and the gray paint. And to make that gray paint, you're gonna mix some black and white together. So we're gonna need our plate. And we're gonna need some black and white. So I'm just gonna pour some of my white paint on my plate. And then I'm gonna add a little black. And then I'm gonna get this wedge. And mix them together to get my gray. All right, you are going to dab the gray onto the base where the tape is not down. So these two open areas here in light coats. And then you need to remove the tape and you're going to save it for later. You do that, and then you're gonna remove the tape and save it for later. And you're gonna repeat that with your other houses. Now the other small house has our plaid pattern at the bottom. So, I'm gonna go about here. So like a third of the way up the house and press my tape on. And that was not high enough. You want to press your edges down good so that you don't get paint seeping under. All right, just like that, and we're gonna paint here and here. All right, and then remove it and set that over to the side for later. And then we're gonna repeat that with our tall house. The tall house has the pattern over here on the left side. So we're gonna need some more masking tape because we're gonna need longer pieces. And I started my pattern or my tape about 1 inch away from the edge. And then your next piece should be about in the middle. I'm gonna move that one over just a tiny bit. All right, there we go. And so just like before, we're gonna paint this section and this section gray. And this tape is not long enough. There we go. You want to use a dabbing up and down motion. You don't want to wipe. You may have seen me wipe because I'm almost out of gray paint and I'm trying really hard to make it work, and I don't think it's going to. I'm gonna have to mix up a little bit more. The problem with having to mix up more paint is that it's gonna be really hard to get the same color because I did not use exact measurements and just kind of poured some paint together. So we will see how this goes. If my colors are off by a lot, what I will do is just repaint the section on this big piece that I've already done so that they match. I think I was actually able to get that pretty close. Let's see. Not bad. All right, my paint colors are really, really close, but they are off just a little. So I'm gonna paint another thin coat on this first one that I did. Excuse me. Excuse me. All right, and then you're gonna pull that tape off. And set it to the side to use again in a minute. All right, back to art instructions. Grab some new pieces of tape And once the gray paint is dry, place the tape going in the opposite direction that you laid it down the first time. So here's my tape. And I am seeing that I did not include enough tape on my sample project, so I'm gonna grab my roll. And I will make sure that I add more tape than I did when I send out your boxes. All right, so our first ones were vertical or horizontal. So now we're gonna do vertical on this one. Our paint, yeah, our paint is dry. And we're gonna start from the edge. And work our way over. I'm gonna have to go grab a tissue. I will be right back. All right, sorry about that. All right, so we've got our tape on and we do that area the same gray. And remember, we're just doing the top part here. We're not doing all the way down. This time you leave the tape in place. Do not remove the tape. All right, this one I can see is not quite dry yet, so I'm gonna go grab the hair dryer and blow it. If you were to put your tape on while it was still wet, you would pull off some of the paint. and you're gonna set that over to the side. All right, our first house is still a little bit wet, so instead of waiting for it to dry, I'm gonna go hair dry it. All right, you're gonna take that original tape you were using and place it on the exact same spot that it was applied the first time. That's not where it was. I knew that didn't feel right. Okay, here we go. And you are going to paint those exposed parts black. So you're gonna grab your black paint and get a clean sponge, dip it in, dab the extra off on your plate. And dab up and down. And then we'll do the same thing with this one. I have been using the same tape for these two, so I'm just gonna grab another piece of tape really quick. And this one still has a little wet spot, so I'm gonna go dry that. should have added one more piece of tape up here to the top. So our plait's gonna be a little off. That's okay. So if you're making this at home, don't make that mistake that I did about forgetting to add one more strip of tape at the top. It should have been just like this. And then set that black paint back to the side because you will be using it one more time with the sponge. We're gonna go back to our first piece and we can peel off all of our tape. You can see our nice little buffalo plaid pattern there. There we go. Now, we are ready for step 7. Take your sandpaper and go over the buffalo plaid to distress it and wipe off to remove any dust. But before you do that, you need to let it finish drying. My black is still a little bit wet. So I'm going to come back to that step. I'm gonna grab my letters, the bloom letters, and my black paint. And we're gonna dab a thin layer of black paint on that. And I don't know if you guys can see how the paint is kind of bubbled on there. I put it on a little bit too thick. So I'm gonna take my little paint dabber and on my plate dab off as much of that extra paint as I can because I have too much. And then just go back over it. And that'll help get off any super thick areas. Remember, don't wipe it on, you wanna dab up and down. All right, we're gonna set that over to the side to dry. Now see, my buffalo plaid is still a little damp, so I'm gonna go ahead and go to the next step, which is you're gonna need a baby wipe, the yellow paint, and the sunflower petals. So we've got our sunflowers here. You've got 4 small ones and you've got 1 big one. You're gonna grab a baby wipe, wipe it around your fingers. Like so. I use my 2 fingers. Well, there we go. Dip it in and you're gonna do the petals. I'm going into the middle section just a little bit, but not much, because we are going to put brown there. And the reason we're using a baby wipe on this instead of a paint dabber is so that we can still see the nice definition of our sunflower petals without getting too much paint in those cracks. All right, I'm going to do 2 coats on my bigger sunflower so that it is a little brighter than what it is currently. I'm gonna go ahead and do 2 coats on my little ones too. I'm gonna do 3 coats on my big one. I just want that one to stand out and have a little bit more pop to it. All right, there we go. The next you're going to do is take out a baby wipe, wrap it around your fingers, and do the brown centers. And what I'm gonna do is actually take the same baby wipe and just fold it over to a different area. Because it's okay if my brown and yellow mix a little bit. so. So there's one. Two. And I'm not doing these completely perfect. Like there might be a little bit of yellow paint where the brown should be, a little bit of brown where the yellow should be on the petals. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect. And a little bit of paint goes a long way on this part right here. Love that. All right. Set that over to the side. And you're going to grab your green paint. You should have one more wipe left. And you have 3 stems that we are going to paint green. And I'm going to do 2 thin coats on these. All right, and I'm going to use the clean part of my baby wipe to wipe some of this paint off my fingers. This is probably the messiest I've ever gotten on one of our boxes. Okay, we'll set those to the side to dry. And we're gonna go back to that step 7 where we take our sandpaper and go over the buffalo plaid to distress it. So I'm gonna go to my first piece here. I'm gonna get my little piece of sandpaper, and in the direction of the grain, I'm just gonna lightly rub it. And then I'm gonna go the opposite way. And then blow off any dust. See, that just makes it look not quite so perfect lines. You can see the difference between distressed and not distressed. If the distressed is not the look that you want, then by all means, you can skip the sandpaper step. So those are done. Now we are going to take a little glue and glue down your pieces onto the houses. And I want mine to look just like my picture here. So I'm gonna take my first house and my bloom and one of my little sunflowers and place them on where I like them. And you just need a little bit of glue. I got way too much. I'm actually gonna wipe some of it off onto here. And give it a firm press and set it over to the side. My next small house, actually I'll start with the big one. So I'm doing them in order. The sunflower goes in the middle. Set that over to the side, and then the small one. And we always place our pieces down, arrange all of them before we glue anything. So you can make sure that it looks the way you want it to look. Because once you glue it, it is there forever. All right, I like that. right, that is done. Now you're gonna glue the roof pieces on. So we're gonna take our first small house and 2 of the short roof pieces, and you're just gonna put a little bit of glue on the edge here. And then line this up with the edge. And you're gonna have to hold it for a few seconds. Until it is set. And then do the same thing with this side. And then you can stand it up in a base, just like this. This is probably the hardest part of the whole thing, is holding the roof pieces on while you wait for the glue to set. There's that one. I'm gonna grab a little bit more glue. That one didn't have quite enough. So I'm gonna put 2 packs of glue. I'm gonna put 2 little things of glue in your kits this month. Because I feel like one isn't quite enough to get the job done, especially if a little bit squeezes out. Like it always does. Okay, so let's glue this one back on. All right, here we go. All right, and there is our craft box for August. If you would like to get yours, you can go to www.countylinecraft.com to purchase via PayPal, or you can also send me a message on Facebook or Instagram and I can send you the PayPal link. Thanks, guys. I just glued my hand to the paper. Yeah, it's stuck with super glue. There we go. Thanks, guys.